Yo, this is Neville Gallimore from the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to give a major shout out to Mike Tag. Keep bringing the hype to the Cowboys Nation. We love and appreciate it. Now, can you dig it? Let's get it.
Hey, I told you guys! Don't go Bears! Just win it! All I've heard for the last 5 weeks is we want Dallas! So all you haters, you come down for me! You fuel the fire! Because I want it! Are you gonna say, hey, you dig it?
What is up? Welcome to another special edition of Tag Nation. Before I get started, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that alert button. If you can't catch us on YouTube, we're now on Spotify. You can catch all the player interviews that I've done. Our Monday live show is on there all the time. I'll put our special edition Cowboy stuff on there as well. So there's no platform where you can't find me. Can't hide. So tonight, I got a special guest. You might be saying, Mike, why are you wearing that shirt with the Broncos and the Cowboys, the shirt from last season when the Broncos came in and embarrassed us at AT&T that I had to witness? I said, I'd never wear this shirt again, but I got a special guest, so I had to dust it off and break it out. I got Mr. Rick Upchurch, Denver Bronco legend, coming into the cave, talk about his playing days with the Denver Broncos. We're going to get into the Super Bowl 12 against the Cowboys. So there's always a Cowboy storyline we got to do. But this man, his resume, if you guys don't know already, I'll run through it. He's a member of the all decade team in the 70s and 80s. So 2 decades in a row, all decade team. I don't know too many players that have that on their accomplishment list. 5-time all pro, obviously multiple Pro Bowls. He was when he retired, he was the all-time punt leader in yards. He had 12.1 yards a punt. Only 5 players in NFL history have that accomplishment. 8 punt returns for touchdowns. He was a wide receiver. He did a little running back every now and then on some reverses. He was an all-purpose, what would you call a 5-tool player nowadays? So without any further ado, let's give it up for my man, Mr. Rick Upchurch. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Mike. I'm doing absolutely well.
Good.
Glad to be on with you guys, man.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. And I'm glad we had some technical stuff, but we got it worked out. It's it's technology. Anyone knows me, I'm not a tech guy. So the fans have seen it and they understand it. But I do want to, I want to say thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited. I spent, my brother is a big Bronco fan. So he was feeding me with all the knowledge and I was doing a lot of research and it was interesting. The first thing I always like to ask, former players, especially from the 70s, and I've interviewed a bunch of them, the draft. So the draft was such a big deal, such a big deal today, but it really wasn't back then. You came out of the University of Minnesota, you're drafted by the Broncos in the 4th round. How did that process go? I mean, were the Broncos, did you know that they were going to draft you, or is it kind of quiet and they just call you up one day or you read it in the paper?
No, not at all. I didn't. I had no idea, man, about the Denver Broncos. They didn't even come in and work me out or anything. The only team that came in and worked me out was the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was it. And so I was just sitting back waiting and see who wanted to pick me up and get me on their team.
Well, it was great that it turned out to be the Broncos. I'm sure for you, but also for the Denver Broncos. I think we're having there. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. All right. We lost the audio, but we'll keep rolling with it. So let's talk about your rookie year. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but in the research I saw, your first game in the NFL against the Kansas City Chiefs, you had 3 punt returns for 153 yards. You returned 1 for a touchdown, and then you had
No.
No?
That's wrong.
Yeah,
I had 3 passes for 153 yards.
Oh, it was 3 passes for 150. All right, I apologize. Three receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. And your first touchdown was on a reverse. I believe it was a 13-yard touchdown against Kansas City. But the odd thing is you didn't even get a decal on your helmet or any stripes. You had a plain blue helmet. Were they telling the rookie he had to earn, the D on the helmet?
No, that's not what happened. What happened was that on a kickoff return, my first kickoff return that I had in the National Football League, my helmet got cracked. I got violently hit, in that and that whole deal. So my helmet got cracked and that whole deal. And so they quickly put a helmet on me, and it didn't have a decal on it. And then at halftime, they put one on for me.
Because it looked like an old 2-bar from the picture I saw. It looked like the old school 2-bar helmet. It was just plain blue. I thought that was kind of odd. So I'm glad you cleared it up. But you splashed onto the scene with the Broncos, and of course, you were on the all rookie team. You had a great rookie season. The Broncos kind of were, I guess in your early years, they were kind of finding their way. It was a young team. I think you had Reuben Carter was drafted in your draft class, and I think Lewis Wright was also in your draft
right.
class. So you were
Steve
some young
Foley,
guys coming up.
Bob Winston, yeah. We had some great guys, man. Let me tell you, we put together a great draft in that 1975 season. Like I said, Louis Wright was the number 1 draft choice. We had Drew Mahalak out of Notre Dame. We had Eric Pinnock out of Notre Dame. We had Reuben Carter. We had Charlie Smith. That was a 2nd-round draft choice. Yeah, we had a pretty good draft in 1975 for sure.
And that it was the building blocks, right, to what led to the 77 season. And you guys put together a phenomenal year, 12-2. Talk about the beginning of that season. Did you feel you had something special going into that 77 season?
We did. We really did. We knew we had an awesome defense. And the year before, we went 9-5, I believe, because we had a 14-game season. We went 9-5, so we just missed the playoffs. So we knew that if we could put a few things together, and that defense was awful good, that Orange Crush defense, and we know our special teams was really special. And all we had to do on offense is make sure that we didn't turn the ball over and manage the game and not put the defense in a bad situation.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things going before we get to the playoff run that you guys had, because it's pretty remarkable when you look at that. You played the Cowboys on the last game of the season. Now I was 2 years old, so I don't have a memory of the game, of course. But looking back, Craig Morton didn't play in that game. Were they resting him? Was that strategic, or what was the reason there?
I'm sorry, what game were you talking about? I'm sorry.
The last game of the regular season, you guys actually played the Dallas Cowboys and lost 14-6, but Craig Morton didn't play.
Craig was banged up. Craig, they were draining blood off of his hip. He got beat up pretty good. And so Craig was limping around. He was in the hospital. They had to drain that off of his hip. He was pretty banged up.
Okay. I wasn't sure if maybe they were resting them for the play. Nowadays they rest guys if they clinch a playoff spot or this and that. And you guys were, you were 12-1 going into the last game. So I'm guessing you guys didn't have much to play for. But looking at that playoff run before the Super Bowl, and it definitely we'll talk about the Super Bowl a bit. You guys beat Pittsburgh and you beat the Raiders. I mean, talk about those teams of the 70s, and you guys were that up-and-coming team, and you had to go up against Pittsburgh, all the Super Bowl championships they had. How was that experience, and what was the confidence level like for you guys going up against the Steel Curtain and that Steelers team?
Well, we had beat both of those teams earlier in the year. We beat Pittsburgh pretty good, 21-7, I think it was, at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then we beat the Oakland Raiders there in Oakland. And so we were pretty confident that we could, that we could win. Yeah. As long as we didn't turn the ball over, and that's the big thing, turning the ball over and giving those great teams another opportunity. And then our defense was stellar, and they were really, really stingy. And so when we played both of those teams, we had a lot of confidence that we could win those games because we were at home.
Yeah, and it's funny, going to the Super Bowl is my dad. He always would tell me the story. He's still mad at the Broncos because the AFC was so dominant in the '70s. Is when we led up to the Super Bowl. He bet the house on the Broncos, and it didn't work out. But I want to lead up to that. So the Super Bowl, you're playing the Dallas Cowboys. The America's team. I don't know if they were as hated back then as they are today. They're pretty hated today. I get a lot of flack from people who are Cowboys fans, but it was an interesting storyline because you had, Craig Morton, he was former Cowboy, him and Staubach. There was a battle between who's going to start. They used to shuffle back and forth and this and that. So what was the mindset going up against the Cowboys, with Craig Morton? You guys trying to, really stick it to the Cowboys to win it for your quarterback, or what was your thought process leading up to, before the game?
Thought process is hey, this is our first Super Bowl. I mean, so we were pretty giddy about this, man. And so we went in business. Red Miller said, when we go on the road, when we go down there to the Super Bowl, Superdome, what we're going to do is we're going and we're going to take care of business. And all of those games on the road, Red Miller told us this is a business trip, and we got to act like it's a business trip because on the road it's tough. So we were in neutral ground. We felt like we had a pretty good football team, and we were ready. We didn't have a lot of injuries. We were pretty healthy, so we felt pretty good about Super Bowl 12.
And yeah, did you hate the Cowboys? Because you guys really don't play the Cowboys much because, the
No,
whole AFC. Did you guys have a built dislike for the Cowboys because of the America's team name that kind of got thrown on them and all of that went with it?
not at all. The only thing that we didn't like is they was calling us the little D and calling Denver the big D. And so, I mean, I'm sorry, Dallas the big D and the Broncos, Denver the little D. And
Yeah.
so that kind of got up under our skin a little bit. And that old deal and said, we're not little. We're not anybody's little brother.
Now, I asked that because I had Tommy Davis who played with the Colts back in the '60s, and he played on that Super Bowl team that went up against Joe Namath, and the Jets and the Colts back in the Super Bowl. And I asked him the question about the Joe Namath guarantee. Did that affect you? And he was pretty honest, and he said, it did because all we wanted to do was rip Joe Namath's head off, and they kind of got out of the mindset and the focus of the task at hand. So I always find when there's that storyline, how that plays into it, and the thought of if that takes you away from the mindset and the business at hand. But you guys were focused. You didn't let that, all that outside noise affect you, it sounds like.
No, not at all. Our main task was to bring back a championship to the Denver Broncos and the state of Colorado. That was all that was on our mind. It wasn't anything about individual work. It was about us as a team coming together, man, and going to take care of our business, man, down at Super Bowl 12.
Yeah. And you came up short, a lot of turnovers. But I believe that you had a pretty big kick return that at least set up your lone touchdown in the game. What was that feeling like?
Once again, that's a great feeling. But once again, you asking yourself, was that enough? And I remember them getting their touchdown, and I said to myself, something's got to happen. Something's got to happen where we can get a spark and we can get into the end zone because our defense was playing pretty doggone well. When you turn the ball over, guys, when you turn the ball over 8 times and you lose 4 of them in that whole deal, you would think that you would get blown out in a game. But we only got beat 27-10. So that tells you how good our defense really was.
Yeah. No, it was the Orange Crush, and there's no doubt that was a defense to be reckoned with. And to your point, I mean, I don't think the Cowboys had a lot of yards. Tony Dorsett, I think he was held in check for the most part, and it wasn't much of a offensive showcase, but it was a lot of defense. Of course, the Doomsday defense of Dallas, Randy White, Harvey Martin,
Yes.
they were co-MVPs. There was a lot of Hall of Famers, on the field that day, and also guys who
Yeah.
should be in the Hall of Fame, which we're definitely going to get into with you because, and I missed one of the additions for everyone who, and I'm sure they know already. I mean, I'm talking to someone who was on the 70s all-decade team, but that wasn't good enough. He went on the 80s all-decade team. And how an NFL player is on 2 all-decades teams and not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. Now, I don't know, I don't know the politics of it, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I'm sure it doesn't make much sense to you.
Well, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And like I said, I ask people a lot of the times, what is the criteria? Is it stats? Is it championship? Is it were you valuable to your team? Did you break records? What is the criteria as far as you getting in as a player? My very first game, when you get 284 yards, and that sets a pretty good standard, man, for a rookie in his first game, his debut game. I don't know if anybody's done it better. As far as, I'm not talking about a quarterback, I'm talking about just an ordinary player, and I was a rookie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Playing in my first game, and so then I go on, and I was the AFC Offensive Rookie of the Year, selected by my peers on the NFLPA team and that whole deal. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. You break records, you set standards. Your team goes to the Super Bowl the first time. So I don't know what the criteria is in that whole deal. I don't know if you have to be on the East Coast because you have, or the West Coast, and they have all of the the media there in that whole deal. I don't know if you have to win a championship in order for them to recognize you. Who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah, and being an All-Pro 5 of your 9 years, I don't know. I don't know too many people who have that accomplishment. But it's interesting. It's interesting that I don't know if it's even just you, but it seems like a lot of the Broncos, from what I could see, have been disrespected in that in the enshrinement of the Hall of Fame. There's probably more than just you that deserve a spot in there that just aren't getting the recognition. And I think to Cliff Branch, and he finally gets recognized, but he's not here, unfortunately, God rest his soul, to see it. And I think that's the travesty to me, being a Cowboys fan, watching what Drew Pearson went through and the years and the disappointment. And I just don't understand how you're not a Hall of Famer, when you retire, but 30 years later, you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's really weird to me. Like I said, I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know if people have to really rally around you and really put your name out there. I don't know if the Denver media really does that for us. Louis Wright and Randy Gradishar should certainly be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Louis Wright was a shutdown corner before you talked about shutdown corners, just like Mel Blount was.
Yeah.
You talk about Randy Gradishar. Randy Gradishar was a tackling machine. And so I don't understand. I don't know if they didn't have any respect for the Denver Bronco organization back at that time, but you certainly had some great ball players that was making a difference, man, in the National Football League with their play.
Absolutely. And the one thing that would surprise me is it would surprise me that the fans and that the Denver media wouldn't be more in an uproar. It's like I mentioned, on my introduction. I went to the Cowboys Broncos game last season at AT&T. The Broncos were a pretty bad football team when we played them. Everyone assumed that we were going to smoke them, but of course that's why you play the game. That the fan base of the Broncos, it amazed me. They took over our stadium, and I'm telling you, I was there. It was over 50% of the fan base was Denver Broncos. So I know the fans are passionate. I know there's a loyalty, and I think that maybe the fans have got to push on to the media, because it still amazes me how the media is going to declare someone a Hall of Famer or not his peers, not the ones that he played against, not the ones that they competed against. And I think that's where maybe it's got to start with yourself, and Louis Wright and a lot of these other guys, Randy Gradishar, that are being overlooked. Rod Smith in the modern day era. I mean, He was another guy that
Right.
it still amazes me that he's not in the Hall of Fame. And you can't say he didn't win Super
Right.
Bowls. He won, 2 Super Bowls.
Right, exactly. And I would think somewhere maybe down the line, Rod might get in that whole deal into the Hall of Fame because he certainly has the stats that are just as good as Michael Irvin for
Yeah.
sure, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So I don't again. I don't know what the criteria is. If everybody knew what the criteria is, then you could sit back and say, well, no, he doesn't deserve it. Well, he does deserve it for sure, and that whole deal. So I don't know how they grade this thing out.
Yeah,
I really don't.
and I think the one thing which is it'd be a disappointment if this is the case, especially, with you, is I don't know if the special teams and the returners would get the respect. I don't know if there's one who was a dominant returner. I'm not going to include Deion Sanders because he was a dominant cornerback. That was his primary position. But you dominated special teams. You changed field position, 8 touchdowns on punt returns. I believe that was tied for NFL record when you retired. You had
Yes.
your average 12.1, I believe it is, at the end of your career. There's only 4 other guys that have averaged that, and Devin Hester isn't one of them. Who obviously, a lot of us in my era, would point to him as kind of the top dog in returning, and he got overlooked this year. So I think a lot of it has to do with the disrespect of certain positions. And yeah, you were a receiver, but they said, well, he wasn't a primary receiver. You were an offensive weapon, but you weren't focused on one. You weren't the number one receiver, as they like to call it nowadays. But you were a
Right.
weapon on the field, and you're an all-purpose, a game changer.
That's right. Again, a player. I challenge people. I said I've never seen Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or John Elway go back and field a punt or a kickoff.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they don't do it. It's because it's such a dangerous game, and we see today that they're trying to put in more rules to cut back as far as the injuries are concerned. So we're doing a dangerous job, regardless of how long or how many plays we do on the field. It's a dangerous game because now they've moved where you kick the ball off, so there's not as many violent hits on the returns, punt returns. They changed some things there so that now the players don't get hurt. But even with that, you don't see a lot of players wanting to do special teams, and when they do, they don't do real well because they make mistakes. They don't make good decisions, and making good decisions for your team, especially on punt returns, because if you fumble the ball, boy, now their offense has got the ball in positive field position. Or even if you get the ball back, you put your offense in a bad situation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Kickoff return, man. You get hit. You lay the ball down. They get the ball, man. They got great field position. They score. So special teams, it's the other third of the game, right, guys? Isn't that what we've always been told?
And I tell you, just not to jump to the Cowboys, but I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'll just do it anyway. Is I see the difference. We picked up Cavante Turpin, and he's made such a difference for us on field position because of special teams and his punt return capabilities, kick return. I mean, that is game changing, and that's momentum changing. That's everything that goes into it, and and that's where I was thinking too. And I wanted to ask you, how do you have the mindset to field a ball, a kickoff? You're going to go full speed into another guy going full speed, and being a punt returner, you're focused on catching that ball, knowing that there's probably a probable chance that if you don't have enough room, someone is going to just try and take your head off. I mean, how is that mental toughness that you have to be able to do that?
Well, I developed mine way back in high school. My coach had me returning kickoffs and punts as well, and I was the number one running back for my high school. I did it in college. I did it in junior college. I did it at the University of Minnesota. So for me, it was routine. I was comfortable with it. It didn't bother me. As a matter of fact, I struck fear in everybody in high school, in college, and in the pros. So for me, I'm like, yeah, you guys are scared. So, hey, man, I got the advantage. Man, I was like, oh, I can see them when they were coming down. And so then what we would do is we would set up the returns in that whole deal. Louis Wright was on the return team. Steve Foley was on the return team. Tom Jackson was on the return team. And so we made sure that we really put together a game plan and how to set up the returns and make them, man, look stupid out there on the field. And boy, some of the blocks, man, today you can't do it. But some of those blocks, man, oh, you could ear hold a guy, boy, and boy, the next time they come down, they were looking around, and I'm like, oh, he's pretty scared. So now I can really do some damage right now. And so, yeah, the guys, it's not just one guy, me as the returner. It's all 11 of us out there on the field doing our job.
And what's interesting is the names that you mentioned. Those were your top players on your team, and nowadays you really don't see that, right? It's usually your backups. They're the
Yep.
ones on special teams. So you had in your era, you had the top players wanting to be on special teams, wanting to make a difference, wanting to open those holes, lay the hits to allow you to do your job and make big plays.
Absolutely. And the other thing, Mike, is that I could see the field so well. I mean, I could see the field. I knew exactly when people were around me. My peripheral vision was outstanding in that whole deal. And so I could feel people when they were around me and that whole deal. And so the job as far as returning punts and kickoffs, man, for me was pretty doggone easy. I enjoyed it. I loved it.
Wow. No, that's awesome. And you're you're one of the best, if arguably the best at doing it. So hopefully you get your just due. I was saving that for a little later, but I have a passion for the era that you played in. Even though I wasn't there, I'm a historian of football, and I've had the opportunity to talk to Larry Cole, Rod Martin, like I said, Tommy Davis, Doug Cosby, some of these guys that played in the era that paved the way to what these players have today, the success and the financial, where the NFL is and all of that. You guys were really the building blocks, for what we see today. And it bothers me sometimes that, some of those, that era kind of it's forgotten. And
Yeah.
hopefully the NFL doesn't forget where they came from and the people that build it. And you guys, you do get your just due, but playing in that area you had, it was dominant teams. So who were some of the guys that you used to love to compete with that kind of charged you up? And playing in the AFC West, of course you had the Raiders and the Chiefs, and where the Seahawks were there. Yeah, they were a newer team, but and the Chargers and stuff like that. So were there any key guys or anyone that kind of got you going?
Yeah, all of the AFC West was good. I mean, back then, I think the AFC West was the dominant division in National Football League. And certainly with the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs, they were definitely rivals of ours because in the Midwest, you had Denver and then you had Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were fighting for that territory in that whole deal. So we were rivals that way. But then with the Oakland Raiders, we hadn't beat them. So they were our rivals because we hadn't beat them and it's not a good rival until you beat them. And then in '77, we finally, broke through and beat them there in Oakland. So until you beat teams in that whole deal and the rivalries in that whole deal, and then you look at Jack Tatum, you look at George Atkinson, you look at you look at the San Diego Chargers at that time with Dan Fouts and John Jefferson and Kellen Winslow and all of those guys, great offenses. Then you look at Kansas City. It's tough to go into Kansas City and play in Kansas City. Then you play Pittsburgh. I mean, it was just tough. Yeah. That was tough football back then. Really, really was, guys.
So looking at, do you follow the game much today?
I do. I follow the game in that whole deal because, naturally, being a Bronco fan and that whole deal and having played for the Broncos, I want them to do well, especially when they're playing in the AFC West. If they can win their division, then they can go on, man, and do some good things. But I do. I like watching the game.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And the only thing I'll say on today's game, and this is the argument I always have, and I gotta always be careful because I don't want to sound like the old crotchety guy that my generation was better than your generation. We hear that.
Yeah.
It's just like my son and I, we get in arguments over Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Well, no one will ever tell me that Michael Jordan wasn't the greatest, but he never saw him play. He didn't see it. It's LeBron James, it's him, and no one's going to tell me LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. But I know in the next generation, my son will be arguing with his son about whoever his son is a fan with. But looking at the
Sure.
players
Mhm.
today, you know, the game has changed. It's an offensive game now, right? So the quarterbacks are putting up monstrous yards. The receivers, some receivers
Right.
are catching more in a season than some guys, you know, had in a career. So
That's
how do
right.
you,
Mhm.
looking at the game, and I tell these guys, a lot of these players, you know, they wouldn't be playing, you know, Brady's not playing at 45 in the 70s and 80s. Would you agree?
No, not at all. Just ask Fran Tarkenton. He'll tell you.
No, and
Fran Tarkenton, Fran was running all over the field, man, because they, once again, when you guys like Deacon Jones said, hey, man, I like to tear quarterbacks' heads off, man, and eat them and all that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah.
When you have those type of guys, when you have a Dick Buckus who says, man, I just can't stand quarterbacks. I just want to beat the crap out of them and that type of stuff, you know? Then you have the purple people eaters over there with the Minnesota Vikings with Carl Eller and Alan Page and those guys. Those guys were awful good. So you got to know, man, that remember, the sacks weren't even counted until I think 1978 is when they started keeping an official count of it.
No, I know. Then they tried to go backtracking, but yeah, it was different. And then I even think of the receivers. So looking at the way that you played, you know, your route running, shiftiness, speed, you know, everything that kind of goes in. I mean, what would you do today when they can't touch you?
Oh my gosh, man! You put me in the slot, you know, and I get on a linebacker, man. It's bad news for those guys, a safety or even a doggone linebacker, because they can't come up and put their hands on you, man. And after 5 yards, they let you go. Remember the first, let's see, the first 3 years, man, of my career in that deal, bump and run. They could bump and run with you until the ball was in the air, and then you had to hand fight to catch the ball. That, to me, that was real football.
Yeah, no, it definitely. But you know, it's we understand it. There's safety, of course, but it all comes down to the money and
That's right.
offense sells
Fan
the tickets.
enthusiasm.
Yep.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
But I still like my Cowboys. I don't know if you watched the Cowboys much this year. You know, we had a little issue with Dak got hurt and this and that, but our defense is, you know, they're playing so well and getting the quarterback and hitting and doing everything right. I love a great defensive battle. I love a great defensive team. You know, I still, you know, long for that. And yeah, you can put up 40 points. It's fun, but I tell people a defense can travel anywhere. You know, they're going to
Yep.
play in the snow. They're going to play in a hostile environment. They can travel anywhere. So
Yep.
I'll take a strong defense and complement that with a good offense. And I think we got something to work with.
Well, absolutely, and you know, with offense, just like with right now, with different teams and that, the timing is off, because offense is all about timing. Receivers being in the right place, linemen, man, making sure, man, they pick up, you know, the blitz in that whole deal. Running back picking up the blitz and then running the ball with a vengeance, and that offensive line, you know, moving people off the line and that whole deal. So yeah, I mean, the offense, man, is the key thing. It's the big thing, man, right now, because remember, back in the day, gambling wasn't a big thing. Now we got DraftKings, we got everybody, man, that's involved as far as the gambling is concerned.
Oh yeah, fantasy football changed football forever, and
Yes,
then
it did. Yep.
and now the NFL used to shy away from it, and now they accept it. And you know, one of the players from the Falcons, I think it was last year, got suspended for a year for gambling. He wasn't gambling on his team; he was just gambling. And I just find that hypocritical when the NFL is promoting it. But that's a conversation for another day. But what do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
got you.
What do you think of your Broncos this year? You know, I thought that Russell Wilson was the missing piece. I felt your defense was there, and Russell Wilson was a missing piece. So what you think they're gonna? You think they're gonna figure it out?
Yeah, they're going to figure it out. You got a young coach. You know, he's a first-time head coach in that whole deal. Young coaching staff that he just brought in with the players in that whole deal. So the first year is going to be pretty shaky. Now, to the contrary to that, 1977, when Red Miller came in as a rookie coach, we ended up going 12-2, and going to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, man, it can work for you, because a lot of folks don't know the type of program you're going to run, the type of offense, defense that you're going to run in that whole deal. But I believe that this young Denver Bronco team is going to come around and be pretty good. Now, we lost Devontae the other night in that whole deal, and they were dependent on him to carry the load in that whole deal. So
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon and a few of those other running backs are going to have to pick it up on the offensive side. We got great receivers. We got great special team players. We got great special teams. And our defense is playing real well as well. So I think the Broncos are going to be okay. Like I said, remember, guys, they did the first team, the ones and the twos, they didn't play any preseason games. None. And so naturally, man, the timing is going to be off. Russell Wilson coming in from a different team. He's got different receivers. If he was throwing to DJ Metcalf or any of those guys, he would be right on time with them because he understands their speed. He understands how they come out of their break. So it's going to take a little bit for them to gel. Defense is reactionary. All they got to do is react to the ball and go to where the ball's at and make a tackle. Offense is totally different. It's about timing.
Yeah, and I do find that odd, that they just, and I get it. I guess the quarterbacks, it's it's a quarterback driven league. You don't want your quarterback getting hurt, but I don't know how much help that that gives them, and to probably solidify the point that you just made, as I can use Dallas as probably a prime example. Dak Prescott did not play very well his first game, but he got hurt. Cooper Rush comes in and he's in midseason form. Well, he played every preseason game, and he played a lot of he probably played a half in every game. So he was more, he was ready to go.
Absolutely. Because once again, he understood game speed. Game speed is totally different, man, from practice speed. Then getting hit. I remember, man, with us, we went 4 weeks. We went 6 weeks of two-a-days, and in those two-a-days, we went Oklahoma drills. We went 7-on-7. The guys could thud us and hit us and knock us around and that old deal. And I didn't mind it because I had to get my mindset and my body ready for when Jack Tatum hits me or George Atkinson hits me or Mel Blunt hits me. You have to condition yourself mentally and physically for that beating that you're going to take, guys.
Yeah, and they don't do a lot of hitting now. I mean, it seems like it's just shorts and a shirt practice for the most part with everything. And I think that's another. They talk about injuries and I think a lot of that. Some of the injuries lead from not being in that game shape and not taking those hits and not getting that. Because I even look at look at guys, and you can look at other sports, baseball, with the pitchers. I mean, I remember you used to be embarrassed if you didn't, if Bob Gibson or one of these guys didn't throw a complete game, Nolan Ryan. I mean, they were pissed off. And I think, you look at the running backs, you look at the years that Emmitt Smith played, you look at the years Walter Payton played, and you look at the years that all these guys and the punishment they took. Running backs now have such a short shelf life, and a lot of these players end up because I just don't think their body is prepared for what's in store, because I think they don't practice as much as like they used to.
Well, the beating that they take too, these guys are bigger and stronger. I'm looking at these guys down on the field and that whole deal. They're huge. I mean, they are massive. I mean, back in the day, they didn't want players, man, that were 300 pounds, 315 pounds or anything. They wanted players like 290, 280, 285, and they could run. They were fleet. Now they want them big jumbo bodies up there, man, with good feet and that can run, man, and just run over you, man. And those corners and those safeties, when those guards pull out, they're like, oh, snap. Here comes this great big guy, and I got to take him on. Yeah, man. It's a big physical game today. It really is.
It's fast, and I think it was Henry Lawrence. He was a lineman for the Raiders, I believe.
Right.
I was talking to him at an event where they were, he was doing an appearance, and I was telling him I'm a Cowboys fan and this, that, and we were talking about Ed Too Tall Jones because, like you, I will say Ed Too Tall Jones is one that just amazes me that he's not in the Hall of Fame. I don't know how you the NFL, you talk the NFL without including Ed Too Tall Jones, and probably more embarrassing, at least you're in the, the Denver Ring of Fame. Ed Too Tall Jones is not even in the Ring of Honor for the Cowboys. And he was their not even in the Ring of Honor for the Cowboys. It's
Oh, I can't believe that.
No, it's embarrassing.
Really, Ed Too Tall Jones, man?
Nope.
Oh my God.
No, he's not. And he was the all-time, played the most games, consecutive games, all this stuff with the Cowboys. But what Mr. Lawrence said, he said when he played in your era, the owners and the coaches, they didn't want their guys at 300 pounds. You would get fined if you were over. So like Ed Too Tall Jones was so big, they were making him play under 300 pounds. They said if they would have let him play at his weight, he would have been killing people even worse than he did.
Oh.
But
Ed big bad dude, boy.
Yeah. And he also said that he was over 300 pounds, and they used to fine him until he got to 275. Mr. Lawrence was saying during his first rookie year, 1 week he got fined more than his check. He called home crying to his mom and said, "I want to go home. I don't want to do this anymore."
Well, I would too. I would pack up my bags too, man, to catch the next thing smoking out of there for sure, man.
Yeah, so it's just I mean I love the players in your era. It's so cool. Wow, and it was funny. I was talking to Larry Cole, and he had he started doing real estate, trying to find something else to do. He was working outside of football because he said football wasn't barely paying the bills. He played the 60s and into the 70s, but I'll never understand. It'll never make sense to me how the NFL and the money that they have, and not even the NFL, these teams and the money that these teams had. Take Jerry Jones, the money that he bought that team for $140 million. They're worth $8 billion. That team was built on the team of the 70s, period. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. It was built on the backs of those guys. America's team, the whole thing, everything that built up on it, and how they just kind of, shove these players to the side and just kick them to the curb. Especially with healthcare, when their bodies. I remember Earl Campbell. It took him an hour to walk and open the door. It's so sad, and I just think it's a shame. It's a shame, and I've always said the NFL players is the Players Association for the NFL. They need to band together, but they're very weak, and I don't know why, but I wish they would band together.
Because they sell out. They sell out. They sell out, man, because of the owners and that whole deal. They sell out in that whole deal. They won't stand our ground because remember, in '82, we stood our ground. We sat out half the season because we said, this is not right. We need free agency because we have to stay on the plantation until our contract is done. They can say that, hey, man, they can blackball me. They can say, well, he's not a good team player. He doesn't do this very well. He's not this very well. They could blackball you and then put you on waivers, and then you don't get picked up by anybody.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I meant to talk to you about the strike because I had Doug Cosby on, and he dealt with that strike, but he also dealt in '87. And what he told me was the players, the Tex Schramm, who was a general manager, they had these annuities put in for certain players like Tony Dorsett, Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, Everson Walls, Doug Cosby. And it was in there. If they didn't show up to practice, they forfeited it. And it was like millions. It would have been millions it equated to and what they would have got. And so they held that over their head, and all these guys started coming back. And what he was telling me, that destroyed the team. And that's why it was interesting. Yeah. The Redskins won the Super Bowl. Their 2 Super Bowls are on both strike years. And Doug Cosby said it, number one, coaching, but they banded together. It was either all go in or none go in. It wasn't, pieces of that they stayed together. And
that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, it was it's a shame. But again, those '80s, those strike years that you guys were trying to do to better these players and where they're at today. Again, it's really a travesty. And these guys are making just so much money. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I think any player get whatever you can get, maximize your opportunity. But don't forget the ones that built it and that got you in the position that you're in today.
So. But check this out, Ron Gronkowski, you know what he'll tell you? Man, I ain't had to spend not one of my checks, man, from playing in that deal. He said, I have so many endorsements in that deal. I live off of my endorsement money.
Yeah. No, I believe it. It's just,
I mean, we couldn't even get an endorsement. I'm like, hey, can I just sell a pair of shoes to you, bro?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad, and I wish that that they would, that they would do something to fix it. I don't know if they ever will, but it's a shame.
Well, they're trying. They're trying. They're putting stuff in. But even with your injuries and that whole deal, like even with me, I failed two of my tests on the cognitive and the neurological in that whole deal. I couldn't finish the answer, the questions and answer in that whole deal, right?
Hmm.
The multiple questions and that whole deal. And when he said, "Hey, time up," and I had a few more left, he came back and said their doctor came back and said that I gave up. Now, man, having played sports all my life, right, being competitive,
Yeah.
do you think for 1 second I would give up on trying to finish a test?
No, ain't happening. Not happening. It's
That's the race norming I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm gonna read up on that.
So,
That's
so
I mean that's an eye opener for me, and it's really, if that is, it's disgusting, and it's just it's unbelievable that the NFL. I mean, that's pretty. How do they get away with it? How did they get away with it? I mean, how is that even, especially in this day and age? How are they even getting away with that?
hey, man, they got all the lawyers that you can possibly gather up in that whole deal, and
Yeah.
then they'll fight you, and they'll fight you, and they'll fight you, and they'll fight you, and they'll fight you because they got so much money, man, to back them up. How many attorneys do you think they have?
Oh yeah. No, yeah, I guess, you can't compete. It was at Mike Webster, that story with
Yep,
with him. I mean, just, hearing that story. I mean, it's
bad.
just sad. It's really sad. Now, I know that you had leukemia. Is your health? Are you you feeling all right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This past month, man, I went back. They wanted me to get to zero activity on my BCR in that whole deal,
Hmm.
and that's where they measure at the cellular level, no activity. I finally got to zero last month.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes,
That's
sir.
no,
Yep.
that's awesome. Yeah, you just, I
Put me in
pardon me?
put me in remission. Yeah.
No, that's a blessing, and a great thing. But do you have a lot of football? Any football, ailments, or were you able to get out of the game relatively?
Oh no, man! I've had two rotator cuffs
Mm,
on my right shoulder. I have two artificial discs in my neck. I have neurological problems on my right side.
uh,
I had torn a rotator cuff on my left shoulder, and that whole deal, my lower back, man, and that whole deal just bothers the crap out of me, man. And that whole deal, I don't even feel on my left foot, man. I don't even feel the bottom of my feet. So, yeah, I mean, the neurological aspect of it and that whole deal is tough, man, because a lot of times, man, you just have pain and there's nothing you can really do, man, to get rid of it. And I'm not a pill popper or anything
yeah,
of that nature, so I
no.
just try to work through it, get massages, and go see a chiropractor, man.
And does it? And you have no health care benefits through the NFL anymore.
No, they give us healthcare benefits, but the thing about it, do you reach the threshold of being able to get the help that you need?
Okay. And they've got all the
That's just
doctors
like with
and
with the that's just like with the concussion stuff. If you fail the first time or the second time, they said, well, you can go back and get tested again down the road, but they're waiting on us, man, to sit in the corner and start slobbering and stuff.
uh, no, it's and that's where you say with the safety, you're looking at it and you say, well, I guess the game needs to change because of the violent nature and everything with it. You
Sure.
don't want to see these
Yeah.
guys getting. But then I watched Tua. I don't know if you watched that. I mean, that was a disgrace. You know, uh,
Yeah, man.
how do you
You
how do
don't
you
put
let him
him
go
back
back
out
in the
on the
game?
field.
You're gonna tell me he's a back injury? I mean, how the hell do they? I mean, do these
No,
doctors?
wait. I get it. I get it, Mike. But I'm telling you, my first time that I touched the ball, I had a concussion. My helmet got cracked. I had to go in and play for Haven the second half. They put me back in.
Yeah, but and in that era, it was what you got your bell rung, right? That's what they all would say. Oh, I got my bell rung.
Right.
Yeah, it was just they
How
did.
many fingers? How
Hmm.
many fingers is right there? 25. Oh, that's close. Get your ass back out there,
Yeah,
dog.
it was
Get out
just
there, man. You all right?
it definitely was different. Get the smelling salts that get you going, and that
Yeah.
I watched a documentary series on Joe Montana and the absolute beatings that dude took. I was amazed. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
him, I was a
Oh
kid,
yeah.
but you look at these quarterbacks. That's why I'd always argue with people. People are like, oh well, Tom Brady's the greatest. Now Tom Brady's good. Don't get me wrong, but he's the greatest of his era. But in the 80s, I'm going to take
Yeah.
Joe Montana all day, every day over Tom Brady. If you're gonna throw Tom Brady in what Joe Montana had to play with, and go
But
in the
remember,
70s.
Troy Aikman was having issues with concussions too.
Oh yeah, no. If you watch him, if you really watch him, he denies it. But if you watch him broadcast and look at his eyes sometimes, and just kind of,
Yeah.
you can't tell me that he's not getting issues with it. There's no way.
Yeah, man. He had concussions so bad in that old deal, man. I think they sat him out a few couple of games in that old deal when he was playing.
Yeah, no, the last one ended his career. It was LeVar Arrington with the then Redskins,
Hmm.
cleaned him up, and then that was it. So, but
Yeah, man. And
it's
and it's real. But here's the travesty about it, Mike. Is this? It's not so much us as the players in that old deal because we're not going to give up in that old deal. But it's your family, it's your kids, it's your wife. Now they have to be your caretaker. The kids, man, you fuss at them, you holler at them for no reason and that type of stuff. You can't comprehend. It gets frustrating.
yeah,
You understand what I'm saying? And
yeah.
that whole deal. That's the stuff that they don't understand. That it's not so much us; it's that our family suffers.
No, you're right, and that's why it always, to this day, I'd get an argument with fans that they're like, oh well, Zeke's overpaid. We can't be, Zeke's making too much. We got to get rid of him. Or that. Hey, these guys, they should get every dollar, every penny that they can get, and it bothers me a little bit with fans. This is the only negative I'll say on fans. I got to be careful. The only negative I'll say on fans is I don't understand how fans take the side of the billionaires over the people that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into it. You know what I mean? Does that make
Because
sense?
they look at it, but they look at us as subhuman. Remember, they're like, man, they don't hurt. You know what I'm saying? Remember, man, as African Americans in that whole deal during slavery, the reason we were brought in as slaves is because they believed that we were superhuman, that we didn't hurt, we didn't sweat, we didn't feel pain and that type of stuff, Mike.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. But I mean,
True talk,
my
bro.
generation, I've never been around. I have no thoughts of that. I never thought about, and I'm saying that like, people my age and people younger than me are still taking the sides of these owners, and I don't over the
Yeah,
players. It's like why?
well, that's what I'm saying. The fans, they don't believe that we get hurt. They think that we're superhuman.
Yeah, I it's just,
And the thing about it, what they need to do is put on the pads and go out there and play in a game or go into practice, and then they'll find out when they tweak that ankle or that big toe or that wrist or that finger or that elbow or that neck or that lower back. Then, if you haven't experienced it, how can you even talk about it?
yeah. No, I agree. It blows my mind. It's just, I don't know. It's just there's so much going on in this world and so much going on and all this stuff. It bothers me, breaks my heart sometimes. But like I said, I feel for the players, and I know the shelf life for these guys, and they always look at why players are going through issues when they retire and this and that, or why does a player want to hang on longer? And it's like, man, some of these guys are like 32 years old. It's like, what do you? I mean,
Yeah,
you got you got 40 plus, hopefully even longer years that you got to live and that you got to be able to
yeah,
get back to society after going through all of that and everything that they've gone. And, and it's just, I mean, it's tough. And that's why I'm a firm believer. And I think what the NFL's making a mistake, and you're seeing it happening. You're creating the haves and the have-nots in the locker room. The
that's right.
quarterback, the receiver, the
That's
cornerback,
right.
the DN, they take up 4 guys will take up 80% of the salary cap. And all that's
That's right.
left is you got a bunch of guys that are making peanuts compared to them. And what's going to happen then?
That's right. And even look at college. You got NIL now, man. We didn't have no NIL. If we just asked for a ticket to go home, man, we was in violation, bro.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's all. I mean, it's a free for all now, and you know what? God bless the kids. If that, get what you can get. They're selling your jerseys, and they're making millions and billions off these athletes. It's about time they start getting paid.
Well, what about reparation for us?
No,
Damn, I mean, what the hell?
no,
I mean, we should get reparation, some type of reparation, man, in that whole deal for the work and the time that we put in at our schools as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing. You guys built your universities, and I would say it's the same thing in the NFL. You should be getting money from the Broncos, and from these other teams should be taking care of these players and taking care of the guys that paved the way, instead of you know, shoving them to the side. And that's what I mean, I see it. I see it when I go to Cowboys games. I see these guys that are trying to sell some autographs and in a booth to make a few bucks. I was talking to one of them, and that's how I said, well, you been in the stadium? No, they don't really, I'm not a big enough name. Well, shit, man, you're on two Super Bowl teams with them. They sold
Isn't
sold
that
your
some crap,
merchandise,
man? Yeah, man. Ain't that some crap, bro? I'm telling you. It's
Yeah.
really, really weird out here, man. It's weird in how they do everything, man. And as far as the players are concerned and that whole deal, it's really weird to me. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, the thing you can only do is stay positive. You can't let all that, you can't let the negative stuff, get you, and hopefully things kind of figure themselves out, and some of these guys get it. I don't know. For the sports, it's been this way a long time. So I'm sad to say I don't really see it changing much, but especially the
Right.
NFL, because baseball, they're union strong, basketball, they're union strong, but football, all these guys got to do is band together and be unified and
That's right.
demand that change is made, because the change that is made that's going to help the players in the past are going to help them in the future, because they're going to be in the positions that you guys in the past are with, dealing with all the ailments, and you've seen it. You watched that ESPN thing they did on players today. Tell me a little bit about the connection you have with your fans, because I think there's something. I know you do a lot of appearances. I'm sure you get a bunch of fan mail and things like that. How's
Yes.
that experience for you in your retired, football career?
You know what? I love it. The people, man, make us who we are for sure. I've recognized that. My high school coach always told me. He says, "See those people up there in the stands? They pay to come and see you perform, and every time, man, they ask you for an autograph, you sign it." And that was part of my motto, man. When I left high school and went to college and went to the pros, was to take time and show the fans that you appreciate them. And then when you step out on the field, it's almost like they have a relationship with you, like your family. And that there's not a better feeling than having the fans in your corner and you knowing them and them knowing you.
Yeah.
It's just a great feeling. It really is, guys.
No, and that's awesome. And I don't know if you could see it. Can you see me, or are you just talking?
I'm just talking.
Okay. Well, earlier you saw I'm in a mini cave. So I'm known for my Cowboys cave. So I have this,
Uh huh.
beautiful room. It's something I've collected and got to meet players when I was younger. And I used to write the letters as a kid to all the players and get autographs and save them. And I said, one day I'm going to have a room and I'm going to be able to put all my stuff in there. Now, I don't know what'll happen. I don't know if my son wants it, or, when it's my time to go, if it's going to end up in the garbage or whatever, but it means a lot to me. And sometimes, I'll get the hate and say, oh, you're wasting all your money and you're making Jerry Jones rich. And it's like, I didn't pay Jerry Jones for none of this stuff. I did all this stuff on my own. It didn't cost me a dime, but I just think it's really cool when I see players and you get to talk to them, and the interaction, because it changes you. I know, my brother is a Broncos fan, and and he had Reuben Carter, who I believe played with
Hmm.
Miami. I grew up in South
Hmm.
Florida. We grew up in South Florida. My brother was
Hmm.
he'll never admit it, but he was a Dolphins fan growing up. early on. He was a Dolphins fan because I had the Tony Dorsett jersey and he had the Tony Nathan. And but Mr. Carter, he came into his school, spoke to the kids and interacted with them. He became a Bronco fan and he's been a Bronco fan ever since. So that's what I mean with these players, the impact that you have on the youth, and you just never know. It may just be one kid. Maybe it's, maybe you meet 500 kids, but if you can impact one in a positive way, it's got to give you that feeling, and it's got to make it all worth it.
It really is. When you can sit down and, like you said, you can have some words of wisdom, and also to have the opportunity to coach some of these kids as well, it gives you a great feeling, man, because why hold on to a treasure that you have, man, when you know that you can help someone else with that treasure that you have? So I believe all of us players that have ever played in the league, we have information, good information to give to the youngins. And once again, we show them what teamwork is about, what sportsmanship is all about, and how to be cordial to your fans, and making sure, man, that you make them first before anything else.
No, absolutely. And again, I can't thank you enough for everything that you do for all the fans. Even I'm a Cowboys fan. I got a spot in my heart for the Broncos, right? I got some family that are Bronco fans, but researching your career is just, I learned so much, and it was just an amazing career that you had.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I just wanted to win. I went to the Broncos, man. My mindset was about winning. And anything I could do, it didn't matter what it was, kickoff return, whether it was wide receiver, running back, it didn't matter. Whatever I could do to help our team, man, to win football games and win championships, that's why I was there. All the other stats and things of that nature comes along with it, and it shows that you went out there and did your job.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm gonna wrap it up with this, but I want you to stay on because I want to talk to you when the show's over. So when I get done with it. But I do want to thank you for coming on. And I'm gonna get this message. And we gotta, if you're an NFL fan, forget a Bronco fan, you're an NFL fan, you gotta do the right thing, and you gotta put the pressure on the NFL Hall of Fame committee to start recognizing, some of these players that paved the way. More importantly, Rick Upchurch. You're talking about a man who played 9 years, 5 All-Pros, multiple Pro Bowls, 70s All-Decade team, 80s All-Decade team. I don't know how many players in the NFL have been able to accomplish that, but I'm sure if they did, they're in the Hall of Fame. This man needs to be in it as well. You're talking about the All-Rookie team. He's done it all. 8 punt returns for touchdowns, punt yardage leader when he retired. He has accomplished everything. So I am telling you, you guys, fans of the NFL, we got to start doing the right thing, and we've got to start putting the pressure on the NFL Hall of Fame committee to start recognizing these legends of the past. So, Mr. Rick Upchurch, I want to thank you. Hang tight. Cowboys Nation, I went a little Denver on me. I know. I'll never wear this shirt again, I promise you, but I had to wear it. I got to show love for Rick Upchurch. I got to show love for him. That was the worst game of my life. It was the worst time of my life. I'll never go to another Broncos game. I promise you that. At least if I go, my nephew's never going to go. So, Mr. Upchurch, hang tight for 1 second. Here's the outro. Cowboys Nation, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow. Make sure you do all the things. Hit that like button. More importantly, spread the word, because Mr. Upchurch, he needs to be in the Hall of Fame, and we need to make it happen soon. So until next time, you guys have a great weekend.
Now you Eagles get ready, because you might not like it, but you will learn to love it, because we are the best thing going today. Now can you dig it?